to this special edition of the Trailblazers. I'm Perry Rarick, your host. The purpose of the Trailblazer interview series is to share with you interesting discussions I have with trailblazing business leaders. They're innovative, thought-provoking, they're not afraid to challenge the status quo, and they serve as vanguards for positive transformation. I encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Trailblazers, and never miss an episode in 2025. Here are some highlights from the great discussions I had over the past year. I hope you enjoy them. Our Trailblazer guest today is Professor John Dawes. He is the Associate Director for Operations at the Ehrenberg Bass Institute for Marketing Science at the University of South Australia. So typically, marketers who are on their game are going to do a size of market. Okay, and math is not one of my strengths, but I'm going to process this a little bit, the calculus. So they do a size of market. At any given point, a vast majority of them are out of market.
Yes.
Okay, so only a small portion of them are in market. Yet, in my opinion, B2B marketers tend to focus all of their energy on a ready-to-buy prospect, somebody who's in that 5. It doesn't seem like an effective and efficient use of resources, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes. So what this tells us is the way that advertising really works in B2B is actually, it's not so much persuading people to buy or getting them to purchase immediately, because most of them simply aren't ready. So perhaps a way or a better way to think about advertising for B2B is it's to build what we call memory structures, recognizing people aren't in the market now, but building a memory structure, which means they'll link your brand in their mind when they eventually do come into the market. So it's like paving the way for next year's buyers or next year's cash flow.
Our Trailblazer guest today is very exciting, Elliot Berger. He has a long history in the corporate world. He was a former chief marketing officer at Catalent. He had key roles at Johnson & Johnson. He spent several years with Ernst & Young, and that culminates now in a role now which is independent. He works as a fractional chief marketing officer, and he advises the life sciences industry as well as the investors in the life sciences industry. Welcome, Elliot, and thanks for joining me today. I want to ask about media buying. So the media companies out there in the life sciences space, some of them look just like they looked in 1980. And other ones are modern technology companies and don't look anything like a traditional media company. How did you approach media buying? How do you?
That's interesting. It's one of my favorite things in marketing and then most marketers don't pay as much attention because it isn't, it's a different thing. There's a lot of math involved. But even at J&J, I was in charge of a lot of media buying for a very big brand, the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars. And I was always fascinated by it because that's where you spend the vast majority of your money if you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
And it is extremely easy to waste it.
Yeah.
Right? So one of the key important things for CMOs or CMOs want to never be over budget. You can argue about your budget. You can always ask for more budget. You always fight for your budget, but never be over budget. Because when you're over budget, the finance and the CEO will never trust you again. And that's a death trap. Mm-hmm. So fight for it, but then never spend a single dollar more. Never spend a single dollar less either. So I always approach media buying as 1, what's on strategy? 2, who am I trying to reach? And the fact that all of the people you want to reach are in there is not sufficient, because if they're 5% of that total audience, you're by definition wasting 95% of your dollars.
Yeah.
So if you pay somebody double, but it's 80% of the audience, in fact, per person, you're much cheaper. The other thing people don't understand is, I was a strategy consultant to digital startups, so I understand how that works from the inside in their economics. don't settle for the rate card and what's on the rate card, because the media companies are also guessing at what they want. They create products and they're saying, okay, here's what they've got. That doesn't mean that they can do 27 other things, right? If you ask them and if they thought about it and if you offer them a proper incentive, all right? I was always, our partnership with you when I was at Cal, nobody ever sold me until you came up and I told you exactly what I needed and you made it happen. After that, we spent a lot of money with you guys, right? Over time.
Our Trailblazer guest today is Wendy Jacobson. She is a content marketing savant with over 25 years experience in the business world. She's helped businesses in healthcare, wellness, food, and technology plan and execute content marketing strategies with great success. When you said, understand your target audience and the challenges they have. Why is that important to a content marketing plan?
Well, your target market doesn't really care about you. They care about what you can do for them. And so if you don't understand their challenges, you're showing them that you don't get them, and they're going to move on to find someone else who does. Empathy is a huge component of your content. People want to feel heard. They want to feel taken care of, and they want to feel like you can help them. And so if you're putting content out that is all about you, for instance, and not about them, your audience they won't be around for long. They're going to go find someone else who understands them. So knowing what their challenges are is key. It's a key component in all of your content.
So important. Thank you for emphasizing that. Welcome back to the Trailblazers. I'm speaking with Adam Smartchin. He is the Chief Strategy Officer at Altitude Marketing, and we're talking generative AI and ChatGPT. So I'm sure you run into a lot of people who want to talk to you about this. They're either highly enamored with this thing and they're all in, or they're scared. I'm going to lose my job. Candidly, like, what do you tell them?
On both sides, be less scared and be less enamored. I mentioned before, but there are dramatic real world costs to this technology. Now, we don't notice it when we fire up, chat.openai.com on Chrome and type something in. It just, again, feels like a chatbot. The amount of computing, though, behind the scenes is extreme. When you look at something like Midjourney, which is image creation, it's about as much power in terms of energy consumption to create a single image as it is to charge an iPhone. Now, one or two, that's no big deal, right? We all plug our phones in at night. But when you scale that up to millions, it becomes a real potential issue. I don't have the exact numbers, of course, on what this costs, but the estimates are something like 30 cents per query is what it's costing OpenAI to run ChatGPT behind the scenes. That's incredibly expensive. Now, that's energy, right? And that's real world cost. There's also raw computing resources. There are only so many GPUs in the world. There are only so many server farms in the world, and we can't scale this infinitely. So are we at the peak of what we're able to do from an energy perspective and from a computing perspective? The answer might be yes. Likewise, from a training perspective, these models were trained on effectively everything, right? Imagine an artist comes out with an incredible first album, right? Say they're 25 years old. They have 25 years of experience going into that first album. Then they want to do number two. Now they're 27 years old. And they've been busy for the last 2 years touring. They've only added 2 years of life experience. And how many times is that second album a real disappointment, right? It happens all the time. What are these models going to train on to get better when they've already consumed basically everything? Well, the actuality is they're going to start training on their own stuff. And I've heard this described as Habsburg AI, which is just an absolutely wonderful way of putting it. AI is trained on AI with all its hallucinations and all its problems and all its regurgitations, and it potentially gets worse and worse and worse and worse over time. None of this says to me that this tech is going to become so good it can replace a human or think like a human. None of this says to me that the concept of AGI or artificial general intelligence is even close to becoming reality. We don't have the energy, we don't have the money, we don't have literally the GPUs, we don't have the training data. It's just not going to happen anytime soon. So what do we have? We have an intern that might become a little bit smarter, that really doesn't have a path though to becoming CEO, or certainly taking over or turning into Skynet at any time in the near future.
My Trailblazer guest today is Christine Slocum. She is the Chief Growth Officer for the Supreme Group, the founder of Clarity Quest Marketing. Both are award-winning agencies in the life sciences and IT space. She is a member of the Forbes Agency Council and the author of Stop Starvation Marketing. This book is full of tips, what she likes to refer to as moves. I love that term. It implies action. And these are moves you can make that will help you achieve incredible success with your business. It offers 23 power moves, not chapters, not tips, 23 power moves. It contains strategic as well as tactical advice. It's full, I love these, case studies and examples to make things easily understood. I think it's a must read and I highly recommend it. Stop Starvation Marketing. So we're going to just work through some of the moves, and I'm going to apologize to our audience in advance. We're not going to get to all 23, but you'll have to buy the book, and I recommend you do that. We'll talk about where they can find it. So I'm going to go to growth, to move number 3. Growth stalled, get busy marketing, or get busy dying. So you state that marketing is vital, and you've kind of indicated that already. Vital to growth. Why is that? And then you also reference how buyers' habits have changed. That seems to be instrumental in driving what marketers are doing these days.
Absolutely. Marketing is so vital because depending on which research survey you believe, between 70 and 85% of the buyer journey is done before they want to talk to a salesperson or order off your e-commerce site. So there's a lot more that happens behind the scenes, and all of that falls into the marketing realm usually, whether it's content, whether it's your website, whether it's positioning, whether it's public relations, right? So it's super, super important that you have a solid marketing program and you're not just relying on the bottom of the funnel sales department to bring things home for you, because that is going to severely limit your success. And what I also see is a lot of startups believe that they can rely on just their network, their friends, their families, their colleagues. And that works at first, usually for the first year, and growth will get to a certain point and then it stalls and the panic sets in.
You've got a great case study about that in that chapter, in that move, explaining that move. So I want to go back to something you said, which the first time I heard it was startling, but I've come to believe it. Is 70 to 80% of the buyer's journey is completed before they ever reach out, or before the buyer makes themselves known. And I either get disbelief from folks, or who cares? When they show up, I'll be ready to talk to them. But that's a danger, right?
Absolutely, that's a danger. And that is reinforced by that philosophy. I'm going to friends, families, my salesperson's contact list, right? Because with those folks, you already have the relationship. And oftentimes you can just say, oh, they didn't go through that entire journey. I called them, we got a meeting, we closed it. Of course, you had a relationship. But if you're starting from a cold prospect, they have to get to know you. They have to date you a few times, right? Before you offer to marry them, right? They have to really feel comfortable that they are talking to an organization that's not going to put their own career at risk if they choose you.
I'm speaking with Toyna Chin. She is an expert in change management and leadership. She is the global marketing director for Novatech. That's a global clinical contract research organization. Okay, so when you were talking about the outcomes for your thought leadership content marketing strategy, you did not say sales. Okay. And we know, of course, businesses have to, establish relationships, that lead to contracts, and it generates revenue. But you talked about building trust and positioning yourself as a global leader in this particular area, which is clinical contract research. So, how do you measure results?
Yeah. So we do the measurement of our results in a variety of ways. And our goal, our end goal really is to understand the impact of our strategies. We want to understand how best to optimize the campaigns that we're running. And in the end, we want to demonstrate the ROI on our efforts. So for example, around the content that I've described, we'll look at how many leads that content actually generates. So we look at both marketing qualified lead as well as sales qualified lead. We'll look at views of the content. We'll look at downloads of the content. We also look at website traffic. So we're looking at conversion data specifically from a search optimization perspective, as well as a search engine marketing perspective. So those are just some examples of how we measure the results of our content strategy, as well as any of the marketing efforts that we're conducting at Novatech.
You also map the buyer's journey through this process. How are you doing that?
Yeah. So I want to take a step back a little bit, because I think that there is often a misunderstanding about the buying journey, or we call it at Novatech the client journey and the sales journey. And although they are closely related, they are really two very different, distinctive concepts. So the buying or the client journey really represents the process that a potential customer will go through from the moment they realize that they have a need or a problem until they actually make the purchasing decisions. And so this type of framework really helps marketers like myself understand the stages of decision making, and allows us to tailor the types of content and the types of strategies according to those stages within the journey. Whereas the sales journey on the other side is the process that our sales team follows, and that allows our sales team to understand how to engage with a potential client, how to nurture a potential client, and how to convert that potential client into an actual client. So two very different and distinctive concepts, but I think it's often confused that they are one.
What a great distinction between the two. I strongly agree with you. So as your understanding of the buyer's journey, the decision-making process grows and evolves over time, does that inform your sales process?
It does, because we're learning more about our clients, and it's never a one and done. There's always an evolution of it. And so I would say that we're in the infancy stages of mapping out our client and sales journey. I recently mapped out more of a macro view of our client, and did so by conducting qualitative and quantitative research with our clients. There's still some work to be done there, but I would say we're really in the early stages of truly going deep and understanding the client journey and needs, as well as the sales process and journey.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so as you gain an understanding of the buyer's journey, I like to call it the buyer's journey, but the decision-making process, that's really what it is, right? So your buyers are trying to solve problems. As that information becomes available, how does your team How do they feel about that? Or maybe even the sales team as well.
Yeah, I think gaining that additional understanding and being able to use that understanding to improve that customer or client experience at every touch point that that client or potential client has with us is one area. Developing the type of content that really resonates with our audience is also really important. It also helps us to determine what channels are our potential clients and clients absorbing content from, so that it helps us become better about putting together a marketing strategy that really resonates well with our audience. So those are some of the things that we are gaining from really mapping that out.
Wow, what a year you've had. That's a lot.
Yes.
You've been very productive. It'll be interesting to catch up at the end of the next year and see what else you've accomplished.